As we get into our moment of learning today, I'm going to cover something kind of going on with the myth busting or whatever, or talking at least about some of the possibilities around Christmas. And I've heard this question: was Jesus born in a stable? And it's not the easiest thing to answer in one way. It's certainly because we have different concepts of what exactly that means. But we know for sure that Jesus was born in Bethlehem and that he laid in a manger. However, it's not clear if he was born in a stable per se, of like you're thinking of it, but it's probably less likely than some of the other possibilities. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just discuss a few of the possibilities. First of all, it could be some sort of like a stable, like you see a nativity scene with a barn that's like a separate building or something like that. Probably back then that wouldn't have been really the case. If there was a separate sort, or if it was a stable per se where the animals just were, it probably would have been an attached sort of thing. One of the things you think of today is when people have their own land. So back then it was important to kind of keep the things that couldn't be stolen or shouldn't be stolen nearby you. And so a lot of times they tend to be attached buildings, plus it created that much more warmth and that much more closeness to everything. So there were a lot of buildings like that. So that's a possibility. It's also a possibility that was some sort of downstairs room. At that point in time, there's some indicators, if you start to look in different areas of the Bible, of like talking about there wasn't room in the inn. It could very well have said there wasn't any room in the upstairs part of the room, like the upper room. It's the same word as you think of later with Jesus in the upper room. But there might have been room downstairs where they kept the animals, because a lot of times on the first floor, there was, in that time, they kept the animals down there. So instead of in a separate building, they kept them down there. So it's possible they were there. And another one that is a definite possibility is that it was some sort of cave or something like that. Has anybody been to Bethlehem and seen I'll say the supposed site? I'll just say it that way, the historical site of where Jesus was born, because it's a little questionable whether that was really it or not. But that is a kind of a cave. You go down underneath the church and there's this area that's carved right out of the rock. It's a possibility because there were a lot of caves in that area, and most of the time people didn't live in the caves. There wasn't very good circulation or so forth. So a lot of times they did put animals or store things in those caves. So it's quite possible that it was a cave. And the reason why this has historical basis is because there were some early church leaders saying about 2nd century that identified a cave, a specific thing, saying this is the place where Jesus was born. Justin Martyr, for example, did that. And then later, Emperor Constantine, I believe, in about 300, something like that, they kind of declared that the official site where Jesus was born. So it's possible. And if you go there, that's the site you will see. And there's a church built up on top of that and so forth. So it's possible, but we don't entirely know. It's quite possible it could have been a combination of the two. It could have been some sort of like cave part of that was attached to a building or something like that. So my point is not to kind of ruin your idea of the nativity scene. It's just to give a sense that if somebody comes along later and says, well, they weren't born it. You say, yeah, I don't know. They probably weren't born in a barn, but it's not really important. The details aren't important with that, of whether that is. That concept is it wasn't a place where most people would want their child to be born. So that's our moment of learning for today.